how does connecting to our sovereign sexuality cultivate deeper healing?
Our sexuality is our life force. Like, that's where magic comes from. That's where creativity comes from. You have to like know your own desires.
Whatever your desires are, whatever sensual experience you want to have, you also have to be able to communicate it and ask for what you want and what you need. I mean, babe, like, who has made me feel better in the last 10 minutes? I just think we adore each other. So we just so authentically are like, we gush.
Yeah, I love it.
We have like a gush.
Because we're friends first. And I feel like it's been such an honor to witness you on like your journey and your evolution. And like, I feel like you're going through like a dark goddess rebirth right now. Or like, I feel like the goddess's journey is about like going into the underworld and coming back transformed, and you're doing that.
I'm doing it, baby. It is such an honor to have you. It's been quite a few years since you've been on the pod.
At least like five, probably six. Yeah, because it's before the pandemic.
It was before the pandemic, and I remember talking about your meditation practice, and that was when I had a moment where I was like, "Boo! All your fixed signs." Your consistency game is magical. You inspired this cardinal mutable queen to like be a lot more consistent. I never forgot that conversation.
Thank you. I've kept meditating. Like we were talking about before we recorded, I was like, I have like my little thing on Insight Timer that lets me know how many days. And then I had a red eye flight and like broke my streak, and I was like, it's fine. It's my ego.
And tell the babes, like, you were at what?
I was like days away from 2,000 days of meditating.
That is remarkable.
Then, I like flew to Paris. That was really fun. And then like woke up and was like, woohoo. And then forgot that it was like the next day. And then I was like, wow. It was like it was sad because like, again, like consistency is important, but I was like, it's not like, I don't meditate to be like, oh, I meditate because of what it does for me. So I was like, it's fine.
What do you feel like meditation does for you?
So for me, for my practice, like I just call it my meditation practice, even though it's a magical practice or like a morning practice, if you will. So there's a lot of different things that are included, but like no matter what, I'm going to be like sitting for at least like, it's usually like 5-ish, 7 minutes, because like I'm doing things like there's a practice I do called the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, where you essentially like banish negative energy using this like specific pentacle that like you're like starting at the earth and like banishing anything that doesn't serve you to the cosmos, and then calling in the archangels and like just like aligning yourself with divine energy. So I always do that. I always do my meditation, and then usually, or more than anything, there's always prayer to my goddesses. I have a little gratitude practice. I do my seated affirmations. I cleanse myself. And I do that every morning. And I feel like the thing that meditation does for me, it's like a non-negotiable time for me to check in with myself. And like doing that before I start my day, like, because I think especially like, as someone who like loves sleep and who like lives alone, like especially if like my boyfriend's over, if I'm like around people, like if I don't take that time to buffer and to like be in my own energy and connect with myself, like I just get like really overwhelmed and frazzled. So like I will be the one waking up at like 4 a.m. for a flight to leave for a flight at 5, and I'll just sleep on the plane. But like my meditation practice is something that's like, it's just become a routine, I've done it for so long. So, but I think it's really important like to find practices that bring you joy and that work. Like I love using your meditations on Insight Timer.
That's like the biggest honor.
Yeah, I did it recently because you have one that's like working with your future self, like a flower. And like I love your meditations.
Thanks.
So I love doing that. I also do like tapping with Gala, like on her Vortex app, and journaling sometimes. But yeah, I feel like it's just, I think for me as like a super air sign person, taking the time to just breathe and drop into my body is so important. Like I have my charts almost exclusively like air and water. So I say that like I wear a lot of red, smoke a lot of weed, and like meditate every day because like I need those elements because I don't have fire, earth. So
oh my God,
I feel like meditation.
I've got all the fire
I
for
know,
you.
I'm so jealous. We should trade. But you're so spicy. I love it. But I see the Capricorn too. You're so like the money, the biz, like you're so business oriented. It really inspires me. But yeah, I love meditation. It's like it's difficult and I feel like I still suck at it. But like the point's just to do it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So.
And I love that you bring that forward, babe, because it's like, and like I said, you're inspiring me again. I mean, even a week ago right before the Taurus new moon, and just going through this massive transition and feeling so ungrounded. I mean, to basically go through that and then it's Pisces season and then it's Venus retrograde and then it's Mercury retrograde and then it's like
season.
the eclipses.
Oh my God.
I just gave myself so much grace to be like, you know what? You're kind of off. You're like, I was waking up in the morning and scrolling and looking at Pinterest and shopping. And I was like, I am with this part of you right now. And the new moon in Taurus was coming. And I had the hardest day 2 days before. I want to get your insight on what you think about like sort of the portals around lunations. Days before, days after. But so we'll bookmark that. We'll tab that. Our Manny Gens will tab that. But it was interesting because I really, right before that new moon, I was just like, oh my God, it's time. I'm ready. I wasn't ready before. I almost had like a weird aversion to doing the things I was doing while I was married or while I was like in my routine. And so I just needed a little minute to just kind of go off the rails. And then lately I've just got back to it, and you are just adding such beautiful fuel and inspiration to that fire because I just see how much more effective and magnetic and peaceful I am the days that I start my day where I meditate for 10 minutes. I'm intentional. I work with my goddess, my favorite goddess, Lakshmi. I just like do some work just to be with this deeper feminine part of myself. And it's so beautiful how the day starts. Okay, boo. Also, we're going to have an intro for you. Obviously, I'm going to record it later, but for anyone who like doesn't know what you do, like walk us through and also tell us your big three.
Okay. Well, first off, I want to reply to you because I feel like one of the ways that I really see Aries energy is like sacred chaos of like doing things in like your own way, and like a way that's like chaotic and revolutionary and like so uniquely yourself. And I can imagine, you said you're a Capricorn rising?
Cap rising, Sag moon.
Okay, so like the Aries Sag is like, I feel like such a like optimistic, adventurous, like chaotic sign in the ways that it's like, I'm gonna do things my way and learn and transform.
Always.
And like, I mean, Capricorn is Saturn, right? So it's like daddy routine, like wanting to do the things like better yourself, but like I feel like the kind of initiation. I mean, like I also know your father passed away, and I'm so sorry. And like
thank you, my
that,
angel.
and then a divorce, like those two separate things are like so Saturnian of things literally ending and like rebirth, and then for it to be together, like of
Saturn
course you were
square.
like, oh my gosh, I have like a month left of my Saturn return, which I'm going to throw a party when I'm done, I swear.
Please do. Please make that a thing. If anyone could do it, it's you.
I'm going to do it. I have a twin, so I'm like, we have to celebrate. But before that, I had Saturn on my sun, and it was just like, it's just not fun. Like Saturn, it's like one of those things where you're like, you have to go through it. But I feel like you're someone who is so in tune with like what you need, like the awareness that you're like, this is what I'm doing right now. Like, I don't want to do the same habits that I was doing because I'm not that person. I'm not in that situation. And like, I just want to give you kudos for like, trusting the process. And then the new moon in Taurus, like being there for you as like that rebirth. Like,
thank you, boo. I mean, just the permission, right? And that's, I think, one of the gifts of astrology is also just being with the archetypes that we embody. And I love that you said sacred chaos. That I was literally telling my team when we first got here, I was like, so I'm like the most chaotic, organized person you've ever met in your life.
I mean, the Aries and the Sag, like, but you are so organized. But I feel like that it's like, I think of Aries season 2 as like horny chaos. It's like, oh my God, the energy of like sexuality and like desire, but like you can channel it for like anything, you know, even your rebirth. But
we have so much to talk about. Like, I can't even wait. I can't even wait. And we want to give my girls in MWMM a big shout out because they're the reason that you're here. I was like, so yes, I was like, it's been years since you've been on, so this is perfect.
Thank you for having me again, talking about my favorite things, Lilith energy, and my name is Gaby Herstik. I am an author and a witch, and I write books about sex, witchcraft, and the goddess. I lead rituals and classes and workshops and have my own podcast and just do a bunch of different stuff, but writing and teaching about sexuality and the goddess, witchcraft, and also like my spicy work as like a BDSM professional and as an OnlyFans girly, like all of it kind of feeds into my devotion to sacred sexuality and the goddess, which is like what my books are kind of about. I also have, books that are more witchcraft 101, but my latest is Goddess Energy. I have a tarot deck that came out last year called the Goddess of Love Tarot, a book called Sacred Sex, and I have a lot of kind of work resources classes around how to honor our pleasure and beauty as a gift. So
babe, like this conversation couldn't come at a more perfect time, and we'll talk about why. What's going on in your 8th house? Do you have 8th house energy, or like where's your black moon Lilith?
Oh my God, I got all the info. So
yeah, tell me the things.
My big 3, first off, I'm an Aquarius sun, a Scorpio moon, and a Libra rising.
There we go.
So I actually only have my south node in the 8th house.
Wow.
But
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Though.
And I love that we're having this conversation while the sun's in my 8th house right now.
Yes.
So
oh my God, that makes beautiful sense.
I feel like it's also why I've been like really wearing, like, if I'm not wearing leopard print, I'm not wearing brown. And like, I know Taurus is like very like earthy, but I'm like, no, it's my 8th house. I'm wearing black. Like, so I don't have a lot going on there except my south node,
yes.
but I have my Jupiter exactly conjunct my moon, and then my north node conjunct my Pluto, all in Scorpio in the 2nd house.
Wow.
So I feel like that definitely expresses like why
yes.
I talk about the taboo as part of my work.
Yes.
And then I have my Venus and my Sun conjunct in the 5th house and my Mars in the 5th house, all in Aquarius.
There we go. Sensuality.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to me sometimes to think about it. This was a Sunday ponder the other day, but I was just thinking about like how fixed energy, which you have so much of, and I want some. It's literally like when I think about Leo, when I think about Taurus energy, when I think about Aquarius energy, when I think about Scorpio energy, there is a sensual expression to every single one of these of these signs. Like, especially, we wouldn't always think maybe as the Aquarian energy as super sensual, but it's like sexual intellectual. It's your shirt to a T, honestly. So babe, let's talk a bit about Lilith. For anyone who like doesn't know who Lilith is, what she represents, and even like, obviously we'll talk about her within the context of astrology as well, but who is Lilith as the goddess? Like, what is like her lore and her story?
Yes. So Lilith originally comes like as far as like a goddess, as like the goddess that we're aware of. Lilith originally comes from Judaism, from what's called the Talmud, which is the Jewish book of commentary on the Jewish Bible / the Torah. I'm a Jewish girly. We love asking questions and pondering stuff. So the Talmud is literally just like rabbis asking each other questions and making comments, because that's how we roll. So Lilith her mythos also comes from like Mesopotamia. She originates from Mesopotamia as kind of like this demoness, and then she's later adopted into the Talmud. And in the Talmud, it's actually Lilith who is Adam's first wife.
Yes.
So before Eve, there was Lilith. Lilith is said to be made of the same dust as Adam. She like Adam was made from like dust, and then he like saw the way that Lilith was made, and she was made the same way as he was. And the myth goes that Lilith was like, Adam wanted to have sex, and he wanted to have sex in missionary, and Lilith was like, literally, I'm so tired of this, fuck off. Like, she was pretty much like, I want to be on top. She always think of that freaking Tired Back thing song, but she really was like, I don't want to be submissive. I don't want to be under you. Like, I'm not a missionary girly, so I'm like, I get it, girl. She's just like fed up because she has been, treated as submissive, and she's like, I don't want that. The story goes that she says an effable name of God, which in Judaism, it's represented by the letters Yod He Vav He, but we don't know how to say it. It's supposed to be like,
it's in my tarot deck.
Yeah, it's like a sacred word. It's like supposed to sound like the breath of God, but we don't say it in Judaism. So she says a sacred name, sprouts wings, and is like, fuck you, and just like goes to the Red Sea. And the myth is, again, that she has like these hordes of demon babies. And that when men have like, when they have like nighttime ejaculations or whatever, like morning wood, like the reason is said that Lilith comes and copulates with them or like has sex with them and then like has demon babies.
Wow.
So
what a goddess. I love it.
In Judaism, like in like the medieval times, like you would see hella like Lilith amulets to like keep babies safe from Lilith, because it was said that like Lilith would come and steal your babies. And, like,
Wow.
in what's in like the klipot, which is kind of like the almost like dark expression of the tree of life in Judaism. So it's like the 10 spheres of the tree of life represent the divine light. And then there's like so much energy that they make these like shells that kind of represent like the negative energy version.
Yes.
And Lilith becomes this like dark kind of angel figure. The way that I think a lot of us work with Lilith nowadays is a goddess of magnetism, sovereignty, and seduction. I think like the kind of what's called like unverified personal gnosis for me that comes with Lilith is that she was independent. She wasn't a submissive woman, and she was someone who liked having sex. There's like they call like in a lot of these texts, you'll see Lilith being called like a baby eater and a baby killer. And what that really reminds me of is like back in like the Victorian era, how like occultists like Aleister Crowley, when talking about like sex magic, would be like, we killed babies, because you couldn't say like I swallowed cum. Like there was a way of getting around, like it was around censorship. It wasn't actually having anything to do with killing babies. The kind of connection that I have with that is like, I feel like Lilith was like, I'm gonna be honest, I feel like she was a cum slut. Like she like liked having sex. She was like, I want to swallow, like I want to whatever, like enjoy myself and be like kinky and dominant, and like that like feminine sexuality has been so vilified for so long. And like I think she represents like the nature of a woman who's like not married, not having children, who doesn't live attached to a man, whether or not she has these connections. I read somewhere too that like, I mean, the Jewish people, our whole thing is just that we've survived. Let's eat, let's fast, whatever. Because we've, like we have gone through so much. And somebody was like, part of the reason like Lilith was almost demonized was because like the Jewish people had to survive. And if they had women who were just like going and doing what they want, our people might not have survived. So like, I understand the protection of like wanting to like protect yourself from this energy, but like as a modern goddess, the way that Lilith has been worked with as like an archetype or egregore is as a goddess of sovereignty, a goddess of reclamation of ourselves, a goddess who enjoys sex, who enjoys like the taboo, and also as a feminine archetype that's like fiercely independent, like kind of if we think of like the Virgin, like Virgo, it's like obviously a different expression of that, but the Virgin originally was just someone who was unwed and belonged to themselves. And I feel like
God, that's so interesting.
Yeah. So it was like the idea of virginity back in like ancient times had nothing to do with like having sex or not. It was someone who was like unwed, who was pledged to themselves. So I think that like when I think of Virgo, I really think of like that kind of sovereignty. And I feel like that might be like the more like Earth Mama version. Lilith is like the dark feminine, where it's like if you wrong her, she'll wrong you back, right? Like it's unapologetic. And I think a lot of people, I think just in general, people project their fear of female sexuality onto like goddesses that might be considered dark, when it's like, that's like the goddess has been suppressed for thousands of years. Of course she's going to be intense and angry. You know what I mean?
Yes. Oh my God. Like I need a moment. Like that was just a transmission. And there's a really, really powerful piece around this in terms of dark femininity. And instead of looking at that as a negative, how can we witness the dark feminine within ourselves with the help of Lilith as like that reclamation of power and that reclamation of like, and I'm putting this in the form of a question, but like as the reclamation of like our sacred sexuality, and that there is nothing wrong with expressing yours. I also really want to hear, if you feel comfortable, I would love to hear more about the BDSM. I'm just starting to like hear more about that. I feel like it's coming up on podcasts, and I'm just fascinated by, I have Virgo ruling my 8th house. Ooh. Actually Leo rules it, but it's mostly Virgo. So I'm really getting in this place where I'm like, I'm just fascinated to understand unique ways that people express sexual energy.
Yeah.
And just a quick aside, and then we'll go back to my question. Right before I got divorced, this has happened throughout my life, but I started feeling really drawn to Lilith, and I ordered a book about her, and I literally read maybe 5 pages, and then my life turned into total chaos and big changes. But I just think it's so beautiful what you're sharing around her, and then the really deep, intense transition that I've gone into. And now, you know, being unwed and being, you know, returned to myself and really deciding who I am and what I'm interested in and what I'm available for moving forward, especially as it relates to partnership and sex and all of the things. Okay, so going back, how can we as women, or regardless of our gender, witness and be with the dark feminine within us and have a relationship with Lilith if that's something that we want to work with or someone we want to work with?
I love this question, and I love that Lilith came to you. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yes.
I see it. And even you like asking me to be here, I was like, oh, she's like in her Lilith era.
Like, isn't that interesting? Because babe, it's been so long since we've talked, and it just aligns so perfectly that you could be here.
I'm so happy. I loved like getting your message and be like, I want you to make podcasts. I was like, yay. And like Lilith has been one of my like muses for a long time, but she's come in like, especially since Aries season, she's come in really strong. So it's perfect. But so the way that I describe the dark goddess, or a goddess, like the dark feminine energy, it's the goddess of the shadows, the goddess who rules and represents the parts of ourselves that we reject, that is unseen, the ugly, the angry, the grieving, the sexual, the chaotic. Like, I kind of believe that every goddess has like a shadow side and can be a dark goddess, because goddesses are expressions of like an energy that is complete, right? But they're an expression of an energy that's like, they have their own feelings, their own opinions. Like, myths of the goddesses show that they're these multidimensional beings. Like, even Lakshmi has her like kind of like Alakshmi or whatever. I think that's Alalakshmi or something, where it's like her almost like her like negative expression that like came up after she was made from like the Amrita, and like you burn incense and say prayers to keep her away. But it's like we all have like a shadow side just by being humans who are Saturnian. Like, we're born into a form. The only thing we know is we're gonna die. And there's different expressions of the dark goddess, right? There's Kali, there's the Morrigan, there's Babylon, there's Lilith, and they all kind of have their own like flavors. But I think the thing with Lilith is that she represents autonomy, and she represents sovereignty, and she represents us embracing our own desires and who we are outside of like what might be considered socially acceptable, or like acceptable from like Western Christian kind of standpoint. I think right now, especially in the United States, like a lot of us are connecting to this sovereignty because, like, especially as women, and people who are trans or queer, like, we're seeing our rights being taken away. We're seeing this almost like projection and fear of like female sexuality, of our control over our own bodies. And Lilith represents like that part that is like not apologetic of like standing in your power. Lilith can help us tap into our shadow because she shows us that like our desires, our independence, our sexuality, our rage, that these things that we have been taught to suppress, that we have been taught that are not okay, like that actually like those are divine parts of us that like help us own our wholeness. Like Lilith was designed the same way as Adam was. Like, there's a site, like, I feel like it's almost like, especially if you come from a religion like Christianity, or come from a household where like women don't have like the same power or rights as like maybe like a man, it's a way for us to like reclaim that. I think more than anything too, it's like our sexual energy is our life force. Our sexuality is our creativity. Like, sex is a way for us to experience pleasure, with whether it's by ourselves or with others. And I think that Lilith specifically can act as a way for us to find like the shadowy and taboo parts of ourselves that maybe we're scared of, but with strength, because she is so like independent that she helps, like she can be a guide in us embracing our sexuality outside of anybody else, just kind of like the Virgo energy can, but like in a really like potent way. And one of the ways that I relate to Lilith too is through kink and BDSM, which BDSM is an acronym that stands for bondage, dominance, submission, sadism, and masochism. It's also part of like the umbrella for kink, which is any kind of like non-normative sexuality. So outside of like vanilla sex with a man and a woman and missionary, like anything like spanking, like sensory play. So like using like a ball gag or like having your limbs tied or like even doing something like candle wax or, you know, like it can even be like mind play or like fucking with someone's mind. There's a lot of ways to engage with BDSM, but BDSM is consented upon, negotiated, and also like if it's actually true BDSM, you're going to talk about what you do, you're going to talk about what you need after what's called a scene, and then you're going to like plan what you do. So it's, I kind of explain that in a weird way. It's a lot like a ritual where you're doing like a grounding, you're raising the energy, and then you're closing.
Yes.
In a BDSM scene, which is like, you know, like the actual like experience of whatever is consented upon, you like, if we were going to do something, we would negotiate and you'd be like, these are the things I'm comfortable with. And I could be like, cool, these are the things I'm comfortable with. We'd go back and forth, talk about what we want to do. And then you negotiate what's called aftercare, which is like whatever you need after the scene to feel good. Cause like, if you're getting spanked really hard, or if you're getting like suspended in rope, or if you're being degraded really hard, both for the person giving, which is the top or the dominant, and for the person receiving, which is the bottom or submissive, like it is a shift in consciousness, right? Just like a really intense ritual, just like having really crazy sex, like it alters your consciousness, and you want to make sure that like everybody's safe afterward. So there is this like, and BDSM, if you're like a big part of it, it's, you can play with pain, but it's really about power. It's like giving and receiving power, giving and receiving like touch in a certain way. There's like, it's a huge world, right? Some people might have like be really into like being trampled. Some people might be really into feet. Some people might be really into just like, I don't know, like being called a good girl and like being like a little kitten. There's a lot of ways to go through it, but you have to like know your own desires. You start there. And
that's what I was just thinking. I was like, it would require you to be really tuned in and accepting of whatever your desires are, whatever sensual experience you want to have. And then also it, from what it sounds like you're sharing, it's like you also have to be able to communicate it. And ask for what you want and what you need.
Yeah, which is fucking hard, dude.
Yeah, that's
like,
powerful.
Especially in like with sex, like it's, I think as women too, like we are not conditioned for that. And
not
like,
at all.
I'm 31. I know you're like you're a little older, but like even for like our like ages, like it was something that I feel like I didn't learn until like my mid 20s. You know, I think that maybe, I don't know, I feel like the younger generations are going through their own experiences with sex and almost like rejecting it, which makes me sad. Yes. But like, I do think that there's a lot more space for women to like talk about their pleasure, be connected to their pleasure, and there's a lot more resources. But like, when you grow up in like an era where like men are like pushing your head down to like have you suck, you know, do whatever, and like they're not, it's a big shift. And I think that as spiritual girlies or baddies, like, we're already aware of our energy. We're already aware of what's going on in our bodies. And this is just like a deeper expression of that. I think that a lot, I think especially like I'm a straight woman, but I think that like if you're straight, it's something that's, you're not forced to do like if you're queer or trans. I think that like, and the kink community and BDSM like comes from, a lot of it comes from like the queer community, especially like old guard, like BDSM, like what's called like leather culture, come from like men in the military who came back after the war and like wanted structure and like incorporated like military things into like their gay sex. Essentially, it's a whole thing. But Lilith is a goddess who asks us to claim our desires, to claim our autonomy. And with kink, she can act as a guide in helping us embrace that, because part of it is dealing with shame. And I think all of us have shame around sex and our desires. And then when you add something like that feels othered, whether it's like, oh, like I'm really into this, or I want to try this, like when you aren't somewhere like LA or New York or San Francisco, like it feels a lot more isolating, and it can feel like a lot more lonely. Like I grew up in the deep South, and like, dating out there is a whole different ballgame than here. But Lilith as a goddess can like be an archetype and energy, and even like a relationship that we can work with like our desires as an offering, right? Like you can work with
So
kink
beautiful.
or exploring what you want or connecting to yourself through like self-pleasure or sex magic as a way to connect with her. And like, I think that, yeah, some people are like, you don't have relationships with goddesses, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, I do. Cause if you're a friend with someone, it's a 50, you know, it's not always going to be exactly 50-50, but there's like, you make an effort and they make an effort. And like the goddess, like it should be a two-way street. You shouldn't feel like you're getting something in return because you're feeding her and like connecting with her in this way. And I think with Lilith, it's like it's very empowering.
Yes.
And I think especially for you as like an Aries, like I really connect with like the red goddesses like Lilith through that energy. Like, and she's definitely a red goddess, which I consider goddesses of like seduction, magnetism, empowerment, sexuality. And yeah, she will reveal herself to you when like the time is right. But like also if you keep seeing her, if you keep hearing about her, like you were saying about kink, like that's also an invitation, right? You don't like need her to like reach out to you and be like, worship me. It's like when you're feeling that being drawn to that, I think that you have every right to like pray, set up an altar, learn, right?
Yeah,
like even
I love
like
to learn. Like as soon as I feel drawn
Me
to
too.
a goddess and I feel like she's presenting in my life in some way. And sometimes it'll just be through an inspiration, through a thought, which will spark a conversation like this, or have me buy a book, especially my Sag moon.
I love books.
But, you know, I think this is just such a potent, powerful thing to explore. And I will tell you, like, I don't think I've healed so much in the last 6 years. Like, even though my relationship didn't continue on, like that relationship gave me space to heal. I needed space to just be, I'm not really sure how to put it into words, but I needed space. And that relationship gave it to me to move away from the chaos of my 20s in Los Angeles and a lot of loveless experiences, a lot of like not even coming to my sexuality from a place of like sovereignty, but from a place of really deep yearning. And to go into a relationship that was just, he's very safe emotionally and just my Capricorn. I always call him my Capricorn king. He just really gave me that spaciousness and that support. But then to come out on the other side and, as I mentioned, be like, who am I and what do I want? Because life is so sacred. And to me, like our sexual expression is so fucking powerful. And as you were mentioning, and this gets me thinking about astrology, and I want to ask you about this. It really got me thinking like, wow, when I think about the 8th house, that is such a potent house of presence and intensity. And I feel like everything that you were describing with kink and BDSM, it really is this invitation to get so remarkably present. And I think that's what so many of us want so deeply. And this is obviously one avenue to do that. And sex in and of itself is an invitation for that presence. And when we don't have that capacity, or like I was mentioning, like for me, just holding a lot of trauma in my body from things that happened when I was young, but then to actually get to heal that and to be in a present space is like, it gets, for me, it's gotten me thinking like, what do I want to experience while I'm on this earth? And like, how deep do I want to go when it comes to my sensuality? So I think that's another reason Lilith came through. And I thought, I was like, we got to get my girl here. But what do you think, babe, for someone who wants to perhaps explore their unique approach to sexuality and sensuality, what do you look for in a chart? Or are there any placements in your chart that you feel really share and express your sensual expression?
Ooh, okay. I always feel like looking at like what Venus and Mars are doing in your chart and then seeing like what planets they're in, obviously like what houses they're in, what they're interacting with. And then also like, I love astrology. I work with astrology. I do not claim to be an astrologer because it is an intense language. I'm like, all the aspects, I don't even know all of them. So I'm not, this is from like a witch perspective.
I got you. I want the witch perspective. Yes. I'll back you up.
Venus represents like, as a goddess, she is love, sensuality, wealth, receiving. She can kind of speak to like where in our chart, like maybe we have a connection to that goddess.
Yes.
Mars, the same, kind of like our passion, our aggression, how we chase, how we want to be chased. And I feel like that's kind of like the love and lust part. And then Lilith. So for me, I think I have both Black Moon Lilith and the asteroid Lilith in Aries.
Yes.
So I have Vesta and Lilith in Aries, which in my 7th house, which I feel like is like makes sense. But looking at what Lilith is doing in your chart as well is very helpful. But I think it's like, I definitely feel like having, you know, Venus and Mars in something like a fire sign, like that's going to be different than like for me, both in Aquarius. So I feel like you were saying like Aquarius isn't like, I love that you were like Aquarius is sensual, because I feel like we don't get that a lot.
Yeah, the fixed signs are just
it.
unique expressions through the elements.
I love it. And I feel like Aquarius is definitely like free love, right?
Yes,
you know, like different expressions of love. I mean, I'm non-monogamous, so I definitely identify with that.
It's so cool for me to hear that though too, babe, because it's like it's beautiful, because that to me is so Aquarian.
Yeah.
It's like to have that openness.
Yeah. And I definitely did not anticipate that, but because I also have like a lot of Scorpio. So my thing, like growing up, I definitely had to like learn how to move through jealousy and envy.
Yeah.
And I feel like, like as I've gotten older and more like secure, like those things have kind of passed. But I feel like Mars, Venus, Leo, or Mars and Venus, what Lilith is doing. The question was like looking at birth chart. I feel like there was something else.
Yeah, just like, and we can even ping pong off this a little bit, because like, okay, so I was saying 8th house energy, and I asked you about your 8th house. So it's like for someone to look at their 8th house and be like, that's such a potent expression of like deep intimacy and even like secret desires, because the 8th house is like very powerful in that way. And the 5th house as well. So I think it's so powerful. You've got your South Node in the 8th. Yeah. And then what did you say you had in the 5th?
So I use whole sign because it's easier for my brain.
Yeah, I love that. I honestly should in these moments, because I'm always like, computing.
I could tell you both. It's interesting because I've in Placidus, is how you pronounce it. I have a stellium in the 4th house, which like in Capricorn / Aquarius, which I feel like makes sense because I have like very close to my family. A lot of families gone, you know, 1st generation American, lots of stuff there. I have a twin, but in whole sign, I have my Venus, my Mars, and my Sun in the 5th house.
Everything moves to the 5th. Wow.
Yeah. And
Aquarius.
then Saturn conjunct Mercury in Pisces at like 0 degrees.
Yes.
So,
and it's interesting. And I love what you touch on with that, babe, because it's like, looking at your Venus, that's a very receptive, sensual, you know, feminine placement, how we receive. And it's also like our worth and value, like where we place worth and value in our lives. And then 8th house energy, this is something I teach every so often, but it's like to look at traverses. This is just a term I coined over time, but it's like if you look at your, let's say 5th house, and you have like, let's just use the example you said, Aquarius traversing, it's like the way that you express creativity, sexuality, sensuality, like your romantic intensity is literally through this Aquarian archetype. Yeah. And then I would imagine in Placidus, there's like, you know, some other signs intercepted, but I like to look at that because it does give us this unique picture of like, okay, how do I approach romance, sex, and creativity? How do I approach deep intimacy, which is the 8th house? Those are just 2 sort of basic examples, but it's just cool to, you know, that's like my big thing with astrology always, is just seeing how like we may not do things like everyone. Yeah. And I think it's so cool what you do, because it's so expressed in your chart. And I really was just having this thought recently of the fixed signs and like the sensual energy and the intensity, and like, because you guys can hold really intense states of consciousness or experiences for a very long time. Hence why you could almost, you know, meditate for 2,000 days, which is just so next level.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely feel like 5th house and the 8th house are definitely like interesting. And when I figured out too, because I'm a Libra rising, I have having my Sun in the 5th and like the house of joy or whatever, it was like, and I'm like such a like happy person and optimist, so I'm like, I feel like that makes a lot of sense. But the thing with me is like, I have to do stuff my own way. Like I did not have my first boyfriend until I was 28, and like we were non-monogamous since the beginning, and like I just was like, always done things my own way. You know what I mean? And
So
like
real.
I realized very young, I was like, I could try to be like everyone else and be miserable, or I could just be myself and be happy. So I was like, I'm just
So
gonna do that.
beautiful. So, you know, have you heard of White Moon Lilith in astrology?
I don't think so.
So I just learned this recently. So there's Black Moon Lilith,
Yes.
and then there is an opposing energy called White Moon Lilith.
Beautiful.
And I've really done my best to do some deeper research on White Moon Lilith. I haven't found much.
Yeah.
So even if anyone's listening right now and you know a bit about White Moon Lilith, we want to hear about it. Okay, so my next question, my love, is like, how do you feel that sex, lust, and goddess energy can be powerful tools for our own healing?
Yay. Okay, so I feel like pleasure and beauty are really important, and I'm a hedonist. Like I kind of think the whole point of being here is like love and enjoy life. Like I really think that we're physical manifestations of the divine who are here to have a physical experience, because goddess and God and spirit, whatever language you use, like non-corporeal, can't fuck, feel, cry, eat, be sad, be happy. Like, so I think that having like a full human experience is a really big offering to like the divine and our ancestors, especially if we've had family who hasn't been able to be fully expressed, which is like, I feel like the story of all of us at this point. One of the things that I think we can work with to kind of embody like our inner goddess energy or inner divine feminine energy is not only self-love, which is like self-compassion, self-care, doing the things we don't want to do to take care of ourselves, right? Like I feel like self-care is a part of that, like going to therapy, working out, taking your meds, like all of those things. And then also like showing yourself compassion. But one of the things that I write about that I think is really important that can help us tap into like our Lilith energy, our goddess energy, and heal is self-lust, which is the idea of desiring ourselves and like allowing ourselves like be desired by ourselves. And what I mean by that is like getting comfortable in your body, allowing yourself to be like turned on by yourself, like having a practice where it's like you are rewiring your brain to like love yourself and be supportive of yourself in like an erotic context. So like being like, I'm a sex goddess, or like having, you know, like doing something like sensual massage on yourself, or like making self-love and offering it to Lilith, or like even just like every time you like look at a mirror, like taking a deep breath in and like winking at yourself. There's a lot of ways to do it, but the idea for me is like, or like what I like to work with is idea of like holding desire for ourselves and like using that energy alchemically to like transform. So like allowing ourselves to be curious about our desires and our pleasure and like letting that guide us. Like I love the idea of sex magic, which is really channeling your sexual energy and like working with orgasm, or as close as you can get to orgasm, and channeling your intention, like focusing on something as you're having that moment of ecstatic pleasure, like you said, like presence, right? And then at like after the experience, as you're at the peak of the energy and afterward, you're just like focusing on your intention. You can do that for healing, you can do that for self-love, you can do that for banishing negative energy. Orgasm is a way to honor Lilith, honor yourself. But like that can kind of feel, I think, like overwhelming to some people who might not have a connection to their own sexuality. And while you can practice sex magic with other people, like I think that doing it by yourself, feeling the pleasure in your body, noticing what feels good, how you like to be touched, like what sensual experiences and do you want like while you're in this state, like, and especially if you're someone who's like calling in love, like, or calling in someone else, it's like, what are the things you want this other person to show you and to give you? And like, how can you give that to yourself? That's also part of it, I think. And like working with like the goddess of love or like Lilith, for example, and asking for their support and their guidance and their healing, like, or even an archangel like Raphael or Gabriel, who are these like, well, Raphael's healing, Gabriel's like heart connection, like Hanael, like there's a lot of different archetypes you could work with, right? Like I feel like Lilith and Venus are great ones to start this journey with. But I think it's about like noticing what pleasure feels like in your body and also just in your day-to-day life. If sex magic, if you're like, I'm not ready to like masturbate, I'm not ready to like do that, one of the ways you can start is like noticing when you feel desire in your body, noticing what brings you pleasure, whether it's like a matcha latte or being out in the sun or running for 5 miles or smelling flowers, like making art. When you begin to form a connection to pleasure and to beauty in that way, and then you invite the goddess in and you recognize yourself as a goddess and you're like, okay, like I am Venus, like what are her properties? Like how can I love myself through this? Or I'm going to embody Lilith today and I'm going to be unapologetic in my sexuality, like, or pulling tarot cards or oracle cards that represent these goddesses and like inviting them into your life. I feel like I'm going on a tangent, but
no, I'm obsessed. You're not going on a tangent at all. I'm literally like enamored by this. Like it's so perfect.
But I
flow
think,
with it.
Yeah, the goddess, like, I mean, especially goddesses of love and lust, like they are there for us to help us evolve in this journey. And like, especially if you're coming out of a relationship or you've been single for a long time, you're calling in love, or like you're healing from something like, you know, traumatic, like taking the time to reconnect to our own body, to find desire and lust for ourselves, and then to like channel it into life, right? Like flirting with the universe, allowing ourselves to just being in love with life. Like obviously I know that's hard nowadays. I go to therapy, I take antidepressants. I'm not saying it just think your way to these things, right? Like I get that there's steps, but the goddess is a way for us to be supported in that. And lust is a transformative energy that we can work with to like manifest and transmute. You know, I feel like, yeah, there's a lot of different ways, but I think that inviting the goddess in, noticing who is calling to you, and then also just allowing pleasure to guide you is just, it's important, you know? I don't know if I fully answered that question.
You did, baby. You you overgave to us and we love you for it. But you know what? Also, like, this is just something that popped into my mind, especially now, like living alone again and having my own space, which, if I'm being honest, is my favorite. Like
I live alone for the first time and it's life-changing.
Oh, it's the greatest. Like even though I there were aspects I enjoyed about being living with someone, but I'm very clean. I'm very like intentional. Like my spaces always feel very sensual in that way of just like, how does it smell? How does it look? What textures are here? And I was thinking, like, what are your thoughts? I know you do. I know Gala talks about this too. What is it called? Like beauty magic?
Glamour magic.
Glamour magic. I remember we talked about that last time too. What are your thoughts too about your bedroom and like even approaching this work and this devotion from like the way you treat this sensual, intimate space, which is your bedroom? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh my God, I think it's so important. Like, I know that not everybody has the privilege of like having their own space or like fully decorating. Like, I've never lived with like a partner. Like, I live alone for the first time and it's life-changing.
Yes.
I'm so grateful to live alone. But
I think the goddesses, we kind of
we have to. Like,
we understand.
If I ever, or when I live with a partner, like I'm gonna have my own bedroom. Like
100.
I need, or my own room. I don't need my own bedroom, but like I need my own room for my ritual where I can shut the door. Non-negotiable. Our bedrooms become our sacred space and like our temples of like lust. So I think it's really important for us to like I think also like, especially as women, we've been conditioned to think that beauty is like unimportant or that it's selfish, and same with pleasure. But like beauty is the language of the goddess. That's how the goddess communicates with us. Like that is a way for us to be in divine energy. And everybody's definition is going to be different, right? But like taking the time to create, like to turn your bedroom into like your sacred space and your altar, especially if you're someone who wants to connect to goddess energy, who wants to connect to sexual energy, who wants to practice sex magic, like making it a space that you feel like enamored with, that you enjoy, like, and that can just be like, for me, like I love being surrounded by like baby pink and leopard. My old bedroom was like very like bright pink and red, and like my new space, I'm like, no, like I want like baby pinks and golds, and like I love like having like satin sheets and like that kind of thing, like a satin comforter. And like I think since I moved to LA, like, or maybe like for the past 5 or 6 years or longer, like I'll get like tapestries of the goddesses I work with and put that behind my bed. So I have Alexander something's like his birth of Venus behind my bed right now because I'm devoted to her, you know, like having also like an altar space or somewhere where you can sit down and connect to your goddess energy or like Lilith or your sensuality, I think is really important. That becomes like the energetic sacred space of your room. So like even if you're not able to decorate your room like how you want, having a little altar I think is so important. And like placing things that connect you to your sensuality, like seashells or like, you know, a chalice. Like I have like a rose quartz dildo on my altar, right? Like you can have sex toys and stuff. Like
this reminds me of Gall's.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, she's got that in her kitchen.
Yeah, yeah. Hers is more decoration for sure. Yeah, it's so big. But I think that like, and you're so good at curating spaces. Like even just like your photos, like your aesthetic is like so refined. And I think that also it's like it starts with self-awareness and self-knowledge because like that's your aesthetic, that's who you are, and you've done the work of like bringing that from the inner world to your outer world. And I think that one of the cool things about like glamour magic or even decorating our space is, you know, magic transforms you and spirituality transform you from the inside out, but you can also work backwards and transform your inner world through your outer world. So like if you want to channel, you know, more sensual energy or more empress energy, you might want to like work with like deep emerald greens and velvets and golds. If you want to channel Lilith energy, maybe it's more like reds and, you know, oranges or golds or whatever, like, you know. And you can work with things like the tarot cards or like oracle cards or like art for inspiration. But like glamour is really big. And I think that too, like, even if you can't necessarily like change your whole bedroom or redecorate, you can also do things like paint your nails, adorn yourself in certain colors, like wear different metals, because each planet, for example, has like a different metal association. So like if you want to channel Mars, I think Mars is what, like iron, and Venus is like copper. I also wear gold for Venus. But like glamour and self-adornment, perfume, wearing makeup, like, you know, even doing things like putting like certain clothes on certain fabrics, like those are all ways that we can invite in goddess energy through our embodiment. But I think that our bedrooms are so important. Like if you have the opportunity to like make your bedroom a vibe, like it's huge. And also just like you want to be able to feel safe there, you know, you want to be able to like relax. So I'm kind of the same way. Like I'm very organized. Like I don't like having things out. I also live in a studio, so it's like you notice everything, but like you don't want to be like practicing sex magic and then like look over and see like a old piece of pizza on your whatever, you know what I mean? So
100. It's like, and it's like I want to come back to that, to exactly what you mentioned. It's come up a few times. It's like the awareness of self and preference and like desire, and then allowing your physical space to also reflect that. It's funny, like looking back on when I was younger, my mom, she was like, you used to hide like chocolate under your bed and your car was a disaster. Like but then I was like, can I paint my walls like turquoise and hot pink? And so for some reason they said yes. So it's like, I wouldn't say I always like honored my spaces, but as I started to, for lack of a better term, like spiritually integrate with myself, taking care of my space and being more intentional. And every time I've had like a 7-year cycle, pretty much every single time I let go of stuff and I create like a whole new like aesthetic and preference and just like rebirth into this deeper expression of like my soul and what my soul wants. And I feel like sexuality and sensuality, that is, I don't remember what book I was reading. It might have been The Old Soul's Guidebook by Ainsley MacLeod. And he literally says there's no sex on the astral plane. So it's literally like this energy, just like you were speaking into. I meant to talk about this for a minute because it's so real. It's like to be here and to be embodied and to also heal so that we can have present expression in truly the thing that makes us human. And it's how we all get here.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that like it's been really interesting. And also, I definitely relate to like my car is a mess right now. And I need to take care of stuff. But like my apartment is like, my room has always been my sacred space. Like before when I was living with a roommate, had like pink tinsel on my walls and like my Venus, you know, tapestry hanging out. Now it's like, I was like, okay, I'm like, I'm 30, I'm in a new era, like I'm living by myself, like it's time to like evolve my space. And I love the idea of doing it in 7-year cycles.
Yeah, that kind of just came up out of nowhere, but it was when I was like 30, 31. That was like the first experience I had around that, where I was just like, I looked around and I had been living in this apartment, ironically, for about 7 years, and I was about to move, but I hadn't gotten the okay that I was going to move yet. I was moving to an apartment, a brand new apartment in downtown. And I just remember like looking around and being like, this isn't me. This isn't me. This isn't me. And I remember I had a TaskRabbit come and help me in just droves, taking things down the street to Salvation Army and just taking all these things. So, because for me at the time, it was like, I wanted to be in a space that was white on white.
Yeah.
So I was like, I have to release all of these things that are kind of cluttering my auric space and are not aligned with my desire of what I truly want right now.
I feel you.
So my last question, I could talk to you all day, Angel, and this has been so fucking powerful. So how does connecting to our sovereign sexuality cultivate deeper healing, both for ourselves and perhaps even for others, like how we show up in the world?
I love this. This is kind of connecting to what I wanted to say, but like, I think especially like for almost, I feel like all women, all people have, like, I think we all kind of have shame around sex, and especially as women, like we're now just in an era where we are talking, rapping, singing, dancing, expressing our sexuality without fear, like and now it's like almost like we're reverting to wanting to, like, I don't know, a lot of younger generations or a lot of younger people I think are almost like reverting to like old beliefs around sexuality. So I think that it's really important for people to like recognize that sexual sovereignty means that you get to decide what your sex life looks like, whether you're celibate, whether you're in a committed relationship, whether you're having casual sex, whether you're monogamous or not. Our sexuality is our life force. Like that's where our magic comes from. That's where our creativity comes from. That's where our power comes from. Like whether you, like whatever body you're in, like I feel like your sacral chakra, like your root chakra, like that part of your body, like I feel like, you know, technically men and people who don't like have penises, like don't have a womb, but I'm like, you also like semen, cum, whatever, like that's also part of the creation process. So like you still have that creative energy through sexuality. And I think that giving ourselves permission to want what we want, doing like allowing ourselves to be curious about our sexuality, it's not something that just comes up overnight. It's something that changes. It's something that's fluid. Like recognizing that your sexuality is going to change throughout your life. Like whether you're, you know, like having, like going through menopause, or if you have cancer, or you're going through divorce, or you're grieving, or like you have a UTI, a yeast infection, you're depressed, like your sexuality is going to change, you know? And it's part of the journey is allowing that and being compassionate and remembering, like one of the things I teach when I talk about sacred sex, which I'll kind of define, like your sexuality is yours. It is not dependent on who you're in a relationship with. It's not dependent who you're married to. It's not dependent who you're sleeping with or not. Your relationship is yours. It's your own. It is an energy and a connection to like the divine within you that when you engage with other people, you might be sharing, but it's not like the only time you have access to that is when you're in a relationship with other people.
Love that.
And like your sexuality is sacred because you decide that it's important to you and that you revere it as such. It doesn't, you don't like have to only be sleeping with people you love or waiting. Like, I think there's also like a lot of kind of like repackaged Christian beliefs around like womb healing, honestly, that's like your womb remembers and it's imprinted and blah, blah, blah. And it's like,
I've questioned that commentary because it's like, it can be very limiting.
Yeah.
And it's like, then it creates fear.
Exactly.
Like, and I actually remember learning that in like yoga training a long time ago. And it was like, you have the imprint of that man's energy and every single woman he's ever slept with. And I remember being like, and that it just created shame. It was just like, that just creates shame.
Yeah.
And the one time I had a womb healing, I had it in my mind that it was going to be so terrible. And it was like the most gentle, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And it was so simple and so beautiful.
Yeah.
It was a woman who's based in Ibiza. I'm spacing on her name right now, but I just remember how beautiful, how sacred, how simple it was. And I had this thought and this belief that was like, oh my God, and I'm just carrying all these things. And it really is, I don't know what word to put to it, but it's like, I love that you just brought that forward.
Yeah. And listen, like I think womb healing, especially like for women, like it's so important. It's so important. And like, yeah, I feel like that the people that are like, oh, like you have to, you know, like it's an imprint. I'm like, are you telling men this? Are you telling men? Because like my pussy's wrapped around their dick. They're still involved. And also it's like, okay, but what if you've been sexually assaulted? Like what? It's just, it really is giving piece. Yeah, it's really giving like repackaged Christian beliefs that are saying you have to have sex with one person or you're dirty. It's like, it's I just think it's really, I think it's really dangerous and damaging, like you said. So like, sacred sex to me is just having a reverence for your sexual energy, making it important, allowing it to be a part of your spiritual practice. Like dating and having sex can be like, especially when I'm not monogamous, so I feel like I'm always single, which is really slay. But like when I, like before I started dating my boyfriend, like, I spaced out. Aquarius things.
I love.
Like, I can't believe that's the first time it happened.
That was like the Uranus, like lightning bolt.
I was like, it went somewhere. When I started dating, like after the pandemic, this was probably like 4 years ago. Not after, after like lockdown, I was like dating casually for the first time in a second because I was safe and able to do so. And I was like, I started seeing it as like a dating practice. Like every person that I'm dating is a reflection of where I'm at. Every person that is showing up is showing me where I'm at. And if there's a mismatch, it's showing me where I can like realign my energy.
Totally.
And within that also like seeing like sex is a part of that. Like I've had like really incredible transcendental experiences with like a casual, like with someone I was having just like kinky casual sex with and with my boyfriend, obviously different. Like we're very committed to each other. We're in love, but like to say that something has to look a certain way for it to be valued or important. Sex is only sacred if XYZ is just so limiting. And I think that when we are on a journey of self-discovery, like honoring our sexuality as a piece of our divinity is actually like one of the most potent things we can do. Because like up until like the Catholic Church, essentially like sex and spirit were two sides of the same coin. In Sufism and Kabbalah and Gnostic Christianity and Hindu Tantra and Buddhist Tantra, in paganism, like sex is a way to connect with something greater than yourself. Like it's a sacred act. And it's just to say that like our sexuality and our spirituality are divorced is like very damaging, I think. And especially for people who are like interested in kink or who have like non-normative desires, like wanting to be objectified does not actually mean that I think lowly of myself. It just like I'm just into that. And and
it's an experience. And it's like, I don't remember what I was like listening to or watching. It was probably a reel, but it was something around how orgasmic experience and sexual experience, it's literally one expression of like the Godhead, of just being in that spaciousness of no thought. Which is something we crave because as humans, it's like we are in thought all the damn time. It takes us away from the present moment. And I also just love how you really defined and ensured that like sacred sexuality, it doesn't need to be one definition. It's also so Aquarian, your fifth house too, babe. It's just like, just being like, no, this is self-defined. This is self-sovereign. You get to decide what this is for you. What books do you have where maybe some of my babes can like go deeper into, I know we talked a bit about them at the beginning, but like, especially around this conversation that we're having, is there one of your books particularly that you think would be really supportive for anyone who wants to go deeper?
So my book, Sacred Sex, The Magic and Path of the Divine Erotic, is all about like sex magic, the history of sex magic in the East and West, like I go into kind of some like sex ed, talk about like the basics of like sex magic, and then kind of go into like different paths your sexuality might look like. So there's a path called the Path of the Dark Goddess, which is about like working with kink and BDSM. There's a path called the Path of the Mystic, which is all about like using your sexuality as like a devotional tool to the goddess. One about like embodiment and working with glamour. And each chapter is like has like a tarot card that kind of supports that path. My intention with that book was a guide to helping people make sexuality like a pillar of their magical practice. Because I think that like, I mean, like if you're already having sex and you're already masturbating and you're a witch or you're spiritual, like there's like that can be part of your practice. It doesn't have to be separate.
Yes. Bring more intentionality.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that one has a lot of resources. I interview sex therapists and doulas and sex workers and artists and have like a whole section of resources in the back. I'm really proud of that book. And then if you want more specific like Lilith energy, I have my book called Goddess Energy, Awakening the Divine Feminine Through Myth and Magic. And there's a whole chapter on the Goddess of Love, a whole chapter on the Dark Goddesses. So like Lilith, Venus, all those kind of goddesses are in there. And that's really about how to like begin to form a devotional relationship to the goddess, which is like my whole life is devoted to the goddess of love. So I feel like those two books are kind of an example of that. And I also have a tarot deck called the Goddess of Love Tarot, and each of the major cards are a goddess of love. So we have Lilith as the devil card, Venus is the Empress, Kali is death, and then like each of the suits kind of goes into like a different part of like love and sex magic. So earth or the pentacles are embodiment, the wands or roses are like sex magic, the swords are like shadow work around love and sex, and then the cups are like heart and love magic. And there's a affirmation and a journal question in that, like for each tarot card, and a ritual for each goddess. And then in Goddess Energy and in Sacred Sex, there's journal questions, tarot spreads, rituals, all those things.
Babe, so you are just a wealth of magic, and thank you also for just being so embodied in who you are. That's just something ever since the moment I met you 8 years ago IRL, I've just always honored so much and just admired. And thank you so much for this conversation. And it was expansive and very sexy, and I had a great time, and I'm just so grateful for you, my love. Where can my babes find you?
Yes, you can find me on the internet at Gaby Herstik, Gaby with 1B, GBY HERSTIK, GabyHerstik.com. I'm on Threads and Instagram and TikTok, though I don't post very much. And then I also have an online membership called Slut Coven, which is all about how to be a sacred slut. So I teach rituals every month. I lead a workshop every month. I write essays. I have ritual guides, and then also have a podcast called Love, Lust, and Magic, which you need to be a guest on.
So I would be honored.
I would
that
love to
would
have
be
you
the
on.
most fun conversation. It's like a whole new chapter of my Aries after my nodal return. So
oh my gosh.
My Mars energy is just V strong.
Yeah, no wonder Lilith is like in your orbit. I'm not shocked at all.
And I'm so excited. I gotta find what I did with this book. I'll probably just order another one, but I can't wait to read your book. Thank you for my gift.
Oh my God.
I love you, Angel. Thanks for coming. This was so great. Love you guys. Have a great day. Bye-bye.